Hello and welcome to MediaNama. This is Sharveya Parasnis, and I have with me Mrs. Meghna Bal, an expert on media law at the Esya Centre, a tech policy focused think tank based in New Delhi, which produces research in the public interest. In April, the TRAI released a consultation paper on formulating the draft National Broadcasting Policy, which was extensively discussed at the TRAI open house discussion last week with various stakeholders from the industry expressing their opinions on the shape the policy should take. Mrs. Bal was an attendee at the event and will be speaking on some legal concerns regarding TRAI's jurisdiction in the policy. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, at the open house discussion, you stated that the TRAI had not published the letter sent by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting on the National Broadcasting Policy, or the NBP for short. Could you tell the audience why this is a concern?
Yeah, so under Section 11(4) of the TRAI Act, which sets out the functions of the authority, and these are mandatory functions. It says very clearly that the authority shall ensure transparency while exercising its powers and discharging its function. There has been a long-standing practice of the TRAI to share the reference letter from whichever licensor when it is carrying out a consultation on an issue, if indeed that consultation has come on the back of a reference letter, because the TRAI also has the power to suo moto make recommendations on different subjects or hold consultation on them. In this case, there was a pre-consultation paper that was released as well. Neither in the pre-consultation paper nor in this consultation paper has that letter been available, which is a stark departure from what has been a long-standing practice for this authority. So that, to my mind, is very problematic. It not only violates its statutory obligation, but is also something that has been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court in multiple cases, including in the COAI versus Union of India case, where again it confirmed that the authority must follow a transparent process when carrying out consultation or framing any regulation.
Right. Thank you. At the event, there was a lot of contention was raised over the possible inclusion of OTT platforms in the national broadcasting policy. A variety of stakeholders expressed concern and opposed the inclusion of OTT platforms. Do you think the TRAI has jurisdiction over OTT platforms?
No, it absolutely does not have jurisdiction over OTT platforms. It's very clear what it has jurisdiction over. It has jurisdiction over telecommunication services. There was amendment made to the definition of telecommunications service, which added a proviso, and this was made in 2000. It's allowed the government to notify any other service to be a telecommunication service, including broadcasting services. And then shortly thereafter, in 2004, there was a notification issued by the government regarding broadcasting services. OTT services are neither telecommunication services nor are they broadcasting services. So they do not fall within the purview of the TRAI. Now, just to add one more thing, Section 11(1)(a) Section 11(1)(a) basically gives the power, says that one of the functions of the TRAI will be to make recommendations either suo moto or on the request from a licensor on the following matters, which includes the need and timing for introduction of a new service provider. Now, a new service provider or service provider under the Act is defined as either the government as a service provider or includes a licensee. Now, anywhere where there's a construction that uses means and includes, it is an exhaustive construction, which means that that is the ambit of the definition. You cannot infer and include your own, include terms at your own whim. So there is no validity to any process carried out by the TRAI where it includes any entities that go beyond the scope of its current remit, in my opinion. And the Act is very clear on this.
Okay. So you think that the TRAI is overstepping its jurisdiction when it comes to its recommendations on the national broadcasting policy, especially when it comes to content
I think
regulation? Sorry.
Yeah, I think absolutely it is. I think absolutely it is. Content regulation again does not fall under the purview of the TRAI. It is a carriage regulator. It is not a content regulator. And carriage and content have very separate and distinct regulatory considerations when in terms of framing any kind of oversight. The MIB has been charged with the oversight of content regulation. But TRAI is not a content regulator, it is a carriage regulator. So carriage would be the pipes and content would be what goes through the pipes, essentially. That is the difference. That is one functional difference, but there are multiple others. And the TRAI, its regulations are framed under under Article 19. Basically, it's the restrictions that are permitted in its regulations come under the permissible restrictions on freedom of trade under whereas under 1916, I think, and content regulation falls within the purview of 19.2. So the grounds under 19.6, the earlier one, and 19.2. So 19.2 is what content regulation falls under. Those are the permissible grounds under which content can be restricted. And the TRAI's primary mandate tends to be public interest, but public interest cannot be read in as a restriction on speech and content. And so, yeah, basically, again, it is overstepping its jurisdiction. It does not have any, this is a broadcasting policy, which means cable and satellite broadcasting. Why you are going into the digital sector, why you are trying to bring in media and entertainment and things like that within the scope of broadcasting is unclear and unwarranted, in my opinion. And I think, if we talk about broadcasting, there are many issues that the broadcasters have raised time and again. The first and foremost being that price regulation by the TRAI in that sector has basically decimated it. And they have called for forbearance time and time again. Forbearance is something that has been followed in the telecommunication sector, but for some reason is not being followed in the broadcasting sector, which is much less concentrated than the telecom sector. So yeah, I think that, the TRAI needs to heed the messages of its of the stakeholders under its purview, which are broadcasters and telecommunication service providers, and it needs to stay away from entities and basically businesses that do not fall within its purview, or subject matter that does not fall within its purview.
Right. There's something very similar and related that was discussed there. So the consultation paper also referred to the topic of regulatory conversions, which basically would refer uh, to the possibility of a single regulatory framework being used for different services like telecom, broadband, and the internet. So do you think that the TRAI is again the justified in its advocacy or of regulatory conversion, or do you think that uh, the possibility, or in a sense, do you think that regulatory conversion should be a part of the national broadcasting policy?
No, I absolutely do not think that. India is unique in the sense that we have specialized ministries for different aspects of communications, and it is working fine the way it is. On top of that, there is no evidence of either service convergence or device convergence. And I don't think that the TRAI has carried out any studies or surveys, empirical ones, to demonstrate otherwise. For instance, there are only 10 million smart TV homes in the country. And if you look at that is it's a very small, minute percentage of the total number of TV homes. So I don't think that, and if you look at, we did in fact, we did the market study for the Competition Commission of India on the film distribution chain in India. It's available on their website. And we found very clearly that these TV, OTT, and theater are complements to one another, but they are completely distinct. There is no product substitutability. There is no functional substitutability. Um, and even in terms of the content that is consumed across these different mediums, there is a complete variance. So there is no convergence at any level. No empirical study indicates that there is. So where they are getting this idea of convergence, you can't just wish it into existence. It's not, it's not a ground reality. It's not a reality on the ground. And I know that someone said direct to mobile, kind of creates that, creates a situation where convergence has happened. I don't think so. At the end of the day, people go to different media for different things, and there is very limited, if any, evidence of that. Like I said, very small percentage of the country has smart TVs, and that is not to say that all of those are homes. First of all, it or individual, what can I say, individual kind of households, or individual households. That, so it could be multiple TVs in one home. It could be hotels which will have multiple TVs as well. So from that standpoint, I don't think that there is any merit to saying that convergence is happening, because it absolutely is not. And like I said, India is very different from other countries that have gone down the convergence route, where they have one regulator, but we have separate regulators. And I think that, or we have separate ministries overseeing different aspects of, um, of basically one for broadcasting, and we have the MIB for broadcasting content. We have METI for all things digital, and then we have the DOT for telecommunications. And I think that is working fine. And I don't think we need a convergence of those entities for better governance or anything like that. I don't think it's necessary at all.
Okay, thank you. Final question. One of the other issues that was brought up, especially with reference to online piracy, was the principle of safe harbor for digital intermediaries. So there were stakeholders, particularly from the industry, who said that digital intermediaries should be considered liable for the actions of users who posted or uploaded copyrighted material. So do you think there's any uh, validity in such an argument, and or do you
No,
think
I
that
don't. I
consequences would
actually,
be bad?
yeah, I think the consequences would be bad. I don't think that there's any validity to this. I think that, um, I understand where they're coming from, but and that online piracy is a huge problem. But I don't think that making entities liable for what a user is putting on their platform um, is the right way forward, because I think that it will have a chilling effect on speech. And I think that it is, in my opinion, unenforceable. It is impossible. It is like uh, trying to, basically trying to behead a digital hydra, if that makes sense, where
Okay.
I think one and 10 others come up in its place. And that is what the fight against piracy is like. And honestly, I think it may yield more unfavorable and unintended consequences. So I don't think that safe harbor should be taken away. on the grounds of copyright. As
Okay.
strongly as I feel about copyright being protected in this country, because I feel like it's constantly being eroded over here. I would say particularly the TRAI's regulations fall foul of eroding the value of copyright and creators' investment in their works by not allowing them to monetize them sufficiently and basically, reducing the ability of uh, broadcasters and the appetite of broadcasters to experiment with content, to pick up diverse content, etc., etc. Essentially, it's reduced broadcasting's appetite to invest in a variety of content because they are so constricted in how they can monetize. So I think that is where a bigger problem lies than I would say, online piracy in some senses.
Okay. Thank you very much for your response in your interview. You've raised a lot of very important questions about the content of the consultation paper on the national broadcasting policy and the limits of the TRAI's jurisdictions, especially when it comes to content regulation and OTTs. And you've raised a lot of important criticisms of regulatory conversions while supporting safe harbor for digital intermediaries. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much.